First of all, my big question of the day to our audience has been, was Lee Anderson, the Tory Deputy Party Chairman, right to say that if the migrants don't like the idea of living on barges, if they don't like the standard of their accommodation, and I quote, they can F off back to France. Now, let me tell you, nearly 100%, I've never seen the switchboard light up like this, nearly 100% of all of our people who got in touch said he's absolutely right. It's what the vast majority of people in this country are thinking.
Well, I think he does speak for the vast majority of the British public. We want the UK to be a generous country, but that generosity has limits. And if people say that they're destitute and want to rely on the British taxpayer to house them and support them, they should accept the accommodation that's an offer. And whether that be the barge or the disused military sites we're bringing forwards, these will always be decent and legally compliant forms of accommodation, but they shouldn't be luxurious. We can't find ourselves in a position where illegal migrants are able to pick and choose which four-star hotel they want to stay in and in which part of the country. That's not right. That wouldn't be fair to the taxpayer, and that's not the approach we're going to take. And so if individuals don't move to the barge, then we will consider removing their asylum support, and they'll have to look after themselves. But I hope that they'll change their minds.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's this sense of entitlement that many of these migrants seem to have. I'm not staying on that barge. Look at the rooms are too small. The gym's not well enough equipped. I don't like the free food. Now, I think in fairness to these migrants, their sense of entitlement comes from what they've been told by the people smugglers. Once you get to Britain, there's nothing they won't do for you. But you can understand why people are infuriated by the idea of somebody who pitches up in this country illegally on our beaches and then says, I don't like that room. Oh, the Wi-Fi doesn't work. Why haven't I got a hairdresser? And so on and so forth. That's what's angering the British people, and it's understandable, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think people are incredibly frustrated by that and the waste of money on expensive forms of accommodation. That's why we had to take action and step in and create these new forms like the disused military sites and the barge, against massive opposition from campaigning charities and the Labour Party. But it was the right thing to do. And you're right to say that some of the migrants have been misinformed. The people smugglers are spreading lies on social media about what life in the UK is going to be like. That's why we've signed a deal this week with some of the social media companies to take down some of those posts and stop them spreading that misinformation. But what we need to do is make the UK a less attractive place for economic migrants looking to come here, because as we know, the overwhelming majority of these people are leaving from France, a safe country with its own fully functioning asylum system. They're choosing to come to the UK, and they're doing so for a range of reasons, but one of them has been the perception that life here is better than on the continent. I'm afraid we have to change that and make sure that the UK isn't a soft touch.
We don't have time to discuss it, but I always wonder why all they get in France, if they're lucky, is a tent. But when they get here, they get four-star hotels, 45 quid a week, free food for as long as they like, and basically the right to stay for too long. So I do think that your government needs to make this country less of an ostensible soft touch. To wit, will you... Yesterday, we were being told that the 500 or so migrants due to go onto the barge, only 15 so far, 20 claiming they're terrified of water. If you believe that, I've got some swampland in Florida to sell you. Will you carry through on the declaration by the government yesterday? Actually, you said, I think it was, we're given 24 hours, otherwise we cancel their asylum applications and we withdraw government support. Will you carry through on that?
Yes, we've written to those migrants who didn't travel, saying to them that they've got 24 hours to reconsider and that we hope that they'll change their minds. Actually, a large number have done, and a significant proportion have now made the decision and have moved on to the barge. So that seems to have worked. But for those who still choose not to, then we're going to write to them and say that we will remove their asylum support. And so those letters will be coming to those people. But look, I hope that doesn't happen, because it doesn't make sense for those migrants. They obviously want to be accommodated, and so they should accept this accommodation, which is perfectly decent. If it's good enough for British oil and gas workers, then it's good enough for anybody else. And so I hope that they'll change their minds, as a lot of their counterparts already have done.
Is it acceptable to you, Robert, that these migrants on this barge are being offered free trips, day trips to Weymouth and local sightseeing spots? They're being offered free trips to the cricket, complimentary tickets to local music festivals. Is that acceptable? Because I thought the government was trying to offer these people who come to our country illegally some sort of deterrent. All of that, plus a nice barge with lovely sea views and a nice part of Dorset. It doesn't seem like a deterrent. It seems more like an enticement.
Well, we haven't done that. That's the local authority.
No, I realise that. But
yeah,
what do you think about that? What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's a matter for them. What we're providing, as you say, is basic but decent accommodation that is no more or less than our legal obligations. That does act as a deterrent, because it changes the perception that if you come to the UK, you're going to end up in a hotel. We were and are acutely conscious of the concerns of the local community who have this barge, and the local authority asked that we give them some funding to be spent at their discretion on community groups and so forth, and they are deciding what to spend that on. That's a matter for them. They'll have to defend whether those are the right choices or not. But for our part, we're just going to provide basic, rudimentary accommodation that meets our legal obligations, and that will change the tone, I think. And some illegal migrants who are choosing to come to the UK because they think it's going to be better than life in France or Germany or another European country will change their tactics accordingly.
Robert, I've been talking to protesters all over the country. As you well know, there are campaigning groups that are emerging where hotels are full of migrants. I believe there are 6 seafront hotels in Skegness. We've been talking about the one Strady Park Hotel in Llanelli, where there's a spirited campaign to stop migrants going there. We've been talking to the leader of the campaigners down in Portland in Dorset, and the North Eye prison development in Sussex. All of them, to a man and woman, say, listen, the main thing, or one of the things we're seriously annoyed about, is we were never consulted. No one ever asked us what we thought about this. These migrants were just foisted upon them. Is that acceptable, that the government didn't consult any of these communities?
Well, we don't want to be using hotels at all. These are symptoms of the problem. There is no good way of handling this, no ideal way of housing people. As I say, we're moving to a much simpler form of accommodation, which is absolutely the right thing to do. But the answer to this challenge is not to dwell on the symptoms, as some people do, like the Labour Party, which is, grant applications faster, do more luxurious forms of accommodation. The answer to this is to stop the boats in the first place. And so the lion's share of our effort has to be on creating a genuine deterrent to stop people coming to the UK. We're doing that in a number of ways. One, to make the UK a less attractive place for illegal migrants to live and to work. This week, we've just announced a massive increase in the fines for those bogus employers who are employing people illegally in car washes and nail bars and construction, etc. Another is to work upstream, like the deal we're announcing today with Turkey.
So with Turkey, that's a good move.
We stop people coming in the first place by smashing the gangs and attacking the supply chain head on. And then the third thing is to bust the people smugglers' business model completely by creating a real deterrent like Rwanda. That's the bill that we've just passed through Parliament, probably the most robust piece of immigration legislation in my lifetime. And hopefully, once we've won our case in the courts in October, we'll be able to get those flights off to Rwanda. And so the effort must be on the deterrent side, rather than simply on the symptoms of the problem, because you can't build your way out of this issue. The number of people coming here illegally at the moment is placing public services, housing and communities under immense strain. It's wrong, and we have to reduce it.
You're a busy man, Robert, and thank you for your time this morning. One last question. In terms of processing the backlog of asylum seekers, I have here a quote from you. I am very confident we will make good on our promise we made in December on migration to clear the legacy backlog by the end of the year. Do you stand by that?
Yes, we've made huge progress in the last few months. There's been a real transformation in this part of the Home Office. We recruited more caseworkers, productivity is rising, decisions are being made at record speed. And so I'm absolutely confident that we will get that legacy backlog down by the end of the year. That's a huge step forward. Very proud of the team involved. But I would say that's not sufficient. You know, you can't grant your way out of this problem. That's a naive view that some, like the Labour Party, put forward. You've got to create that deterrent. You've got to take the tough decisions as well, which is why things like the new forms of accommodation matter so much.
Robert Jenrick, thank you very much for your time once again. Good to speak to you. That's Robert Jenrick, MP, Immigration Minister.